The wrong delivery. The night on Outpost K-17 was cold and silent. Wind brushed against the metal walls of the colony. James, a simple mechanic, was just closing his workshop when a heavy crate was dropped in front of his door. The machine that delivered it hissed and vanished into the night without a word. James frowned. He hadn't ordered anything. Deliveries were rare here. He looked at the crate. Strange symbols were painted on its sides, alien letters he could not read, but one symbol he recognized, the mark of the black markets. He hesitated, his hands hovering over the lock. Part of him wanted to push it away, ignore it, but something inside urged him to open it. When he pried it open with a metal rod, his heart froze. Inside the crate was not machinery or goods, but a girl, her skin faintly glowing blue under the dim lights, her wrists shackled with thick metal cuffs, her eyes wide with terror as if expecting pain. The moment she was seen, she shrank back like a cornered animal. James whispered, "What the hell?" His voice was low, but she flinched anyway, as if every sound was a threat. He saw she was thin, starving, her clothes torn and marked with strange ownership tags. On the lid of the crate was a note in alien script, and below it, in poor English, the translation read, "Gift for Lord Valtrak. Property claimed." James's stomach tightened. He was no lord, he was no one important. This girl was sent to the wrong man, a mistake that could cost both their lives. The girl's lips trembled as she tried to speak, but only a broken whisper came out. Please, don't return me, please." Her voice was weak, desperate. James stared at her. He had seen many cruel things on the border worlds, but this was something darker, a living being wrapped as a package, treated like cargo. He felt anger rise inside him. "You're not supposed to be here," James said quietly. "They sent you to the wrong place." Her head lowered, tears rolling down her cheeks. "Wrong place, wrong man. They will come for me, they will punish me, and you too," she said, voice shaking. James sighed, rubbing his forehead. He knew she was right. Whoever Lord Valtrak was, he would not let this mistake slide. But as James looked at her trembling form, he knew one thing. He could not put her back in that crate. He brought her inside his workshop, gave her a blanket and a cup of water. She held it with shaking hands, staring at him in disbelief, as if waiting for him to strike her down any second. "Relax," James muttered, sitting across from her. "I'm not going to hurt you." She didn't believe him. He could see it in her eyes. To her, every man was a master, every gesture of kindness a trick. But slowly, she drank the water, her throat desperate for relief. Outside, the colony was quiet, but James felt the weight of danger already pressing down on him. He knew word would spread. The black market didn't make mistakes quietly. Soon someone would come looking. But as he watched the alien girl clutching the blanket, whispering prayers in her strange tongue, James made a decision he couldn't take back. She had been sent as a gift to the wrong man, but he would never return her. Not now, not ever. The frightened gift. The workshop smelled of oil and burning wires, but to the alien girl it was a strange kind of safety. She sat on the floor, still wrapped in the blanket James had given her, her glowing blue eyes never leaving him. She watched every move he made, ready to flinch if his hands came too close. James tried to keep his voice calm. "You're safe here," he said, while fixing an engine part. "Nobody's going to hurt you." But the girl didn't answer. She only pulled the blanket tighter around her shoulders, her lips pressed shut, her body stiff like she was carved from stone. When he offered her food, a simple bowl of bread and stew, she hesitated, her fingers trembling over the spoon. She looked at him as if waiting for a command, then whispered, "Must I earn this?" James's heart sank. He shook his head. "No, you don't owe me anything, just eat." The girl blinked, confused. No one had ever spoken to her like that before. She tasted the stew carefully, as if expecting poison, but when the flavor touched her tongue, she ate fast, hunger driving her more than trust. As she ate, James studied her. She was young, maybe 19 in human years, her hair long and silver, her skin glowing faintly in patterns across her arms. He could see bruises on her wrists where the shackles had bitten deep. "What's your name?" James asked. She froze, her spoon halfway to her lips. "Names are taken away," she whispered. "I was called property, I was called gift, I don't know my name anymore." James clenched his fists, the anger inside him growing. He forced his voice to stay soft. "Then we'll find you a new name, something you choose." Her eyes widened at those words. as if he had spoken something forbidden. She shook her head quickly. No, they will come, they will punish you. Punish me, if I belong to wrong master. James leaned back in his chair, staring at her. Listen, he said firmly, I don't care who thinks they own you, you're not a thing, you're not cargo, and you don't belong to anyone. She looked at him like he had spoken madness, her lips trembling. Humans are not like this. I heard humans take what they want, you, different. James gave a short laugh, bitter and tired. Some humans are monsters, some aren't. Maybe I'm just stubborn. The girl hugged the blanket tighter, her mind racing. She wanted to believe him, but fear was stronger. Every sound outside made her jump, every shadow on the wall made her whisper, they are coming, and she wasn't wrong. James knew it too. The black market didn't forgive mistakes. Soon they would trace the crate and discover it was delivered to the wrong man, but James didn't regret it, not for a second. The girl finally lay down on the workshop cot. Though her eyes stayed open, she whispered something in her alien tongue, words soft and broken. James didn't understand, but he guessed it was a prayer. Before he turned out the lights, he said, you're not going back, do you hear me? Whatever comes, you're staying here. The girl's breath caught, her eyes shimmered in the darkness. For the first time in her life, she had heard someone claim her not as property, but as a person worth protecting. Fear still filled her heart, but something new was there too, something fragile and dangerous, hope. Whispers of ownership. Morning came slowly to Outpost K-17. The colony's sun was pale and weak, spreading a dull light across the dust-covered streets. James opened the door of his workshop, hoping no one noticed the crate that had been delivered last night. But in small places like this, secrets never lasted long. The alien girl stayed inside, hidden behind the curtain of his workshop. She peeked out nervously, her glowing eyes catching the light, her body trembling with the fear that someone would recognize her. By midday, the whispers had already begun. James heard them while buying fuel cells, two merchants talking in hushed voices. A crate went missing, they say it was for Lord Valtrak. One said, if the wrong man has it, he's doomed. The other replied, eyes darting around. James kept his face calm, but his stomach turned. The news was spreading faster than he expected. When he returned to the workshop, he found the girl pacing, clutching the blanket. They know, she whispered. They always know. You must send me away before they come. James shook his head. I told you already, I'm not sending you back. Her eyes widened, confusion and fear mixing inside them. But I am property. If they say I belong to someone, then I must go. If you keep me, they will hurt you. James sighed, setting down the fuel cells. You're not property, not to me, not to anyone. But the whispers didn't stop. Every customer who entered the workshop looked at him strangely. Some lingered too long, their eyes scanning the shadows as if expecting to see her. One even smirked and muttered, better return what isn't yours before the master comes. That night, James lit a small lamp. The girl sat across from him, silent, her hands twisting together nervously. Finally, she asked in a trembling voice, why? Why keep me? What do you want from me? James leaned forward, his face hard. I don't want anything, you understand. Not service, not obedience, not what those monsters wanted from you. I just don't want to see you chained again. Her breath caught, her lips parted. She had never heard such words before. No one had ever refused ownership of her. No one had ever spoken of her as if she had worth beyond being used. Still, the fear was strong. She whispered, when Lord Valtrak comes, he will bring soldiers. You cannot stop them. No human can. You should give me back. Pretend you never saw me. James's jaw tightened. He looked at her glowing eyes, at the bruises on her wrists, at the way she shrank whenever someone raised their voice, and he knew he could never hand her over. You don't get it, he said, his voice steady. I'm not returning you, no matter who comes. She lowered her head, torn between fear and something else she couldn't name. Her heart raced with panic, but hidden deep inside was a spark, a small flame she had buried long ago. The idea that maybe she was worth saving. Outside, the colony whispered louder, rumors moving like smoke in the wind. They said the human mechanic was hiding something. They said the wrong man had claimed the wrong gift, and somewhere beyond the stars, the real master, Lord Valtrak, finally received word of the mistake. His rage burned like fire, and he swore he would take back what was his. But in that small workshop, James had already made his choice. The girl was no longer property. She was no longer a gift, she was his responsibility now, and he would fight anyone who tried to take her away. The chains broken, the night was heavy with silence, only the hum of old generators filled the air. James sat at his workbench staring at the metal cuffs still locked around the alien girl's wrists. He had tried to ignore them, telling himself she was safer hidden, but every time she moved, the chains rattled, reminding him that she was still trapped. The girl sat in the corner, her eyes lowered, the blanket slipping from her shoulders. She held her wrists close to her chest, hiding the marks of iron. She spoke in a soft voice, "Do not try to break them, they are forged with codes. Only a master has the key." James's jaw tightened. He hated the word master. He hated the fear in her voice. He picked up one of his tools, a cutter usually used for thick ship cables. "Codes or not, I'm not leaving those on you." She looked at him with shock, her eyes wide. "No, if they find me without chains, they will say I escaped. They will kill me, and they will kill you too." James met her gaze, his voice firm. "I don't care what they say. I don't care what they do. You're not a prisoner in my home." Slowly, he placed her wrists on the bench, the chains clinking against the metal. She trembled so hard he thought she might collapse. When he brought the cutter close, she shut her eyes tight, whispering, "Please, please don't hurt me." The sound of the tool sparked against the cuffs, bright sparks flashing in the dim room. She flinched at every burst of light, but James's hand stayed steady, his focus unshaken. It took minutes that felt like hours, the cutter grinding and hissing, until finally, with a sharp crack, the first shackle snapped open. Her breath hitched. She pulled her wrist back slowly, staring at the broken metal as if it were a ghost. Tears welled in her glowing eyes. It is gone," she whispered, touching the skin where the iron had been. James nodded. "Pickin' G up her other wrist. One more." She didn't fight him this time. Her eyes stayed open, watching as he worked, every strike of the cutter breaking not only the metal but also the chains wrapped around her spirit. When the second shackle cracked open, it fell to the floor with a heavy thud. Silence filled the workshop. Only their breathing broke it. She touched her free hands together, trembling. "No chains. No master," she whispered, almost unable to believe the words. James leaned back, wiping the sweat from his brow. "You're free now." Her chest rose and fell quickly, as if her body didn't know how to handle freedom. She whispered again, louder this time, "Free." Then the tears came, rolling down her face as she fell to her knees, clutching her hands like they were treasures. James stepped closer, placing a hand gently on her shoulder. She didn't flinch this time. She looked up at him with tear-filled eyes. Why would you do this?" He gave a small, tired smile. "Because no one deserves chains." Her heart raced. Confusion battled with a warmth she couldn't name. She had lived her life believing she was nothing but property, but here was a man who had broken the iron not for reward, not for power, but because he believed she was worth more. Outside, the whispers of the colony grew sharper. Rumors that the human mechanic had taken the gift as his own spread like fire, but inside that workshop, something greater had happened. The chains had been broken, not just of metal, but of fear. The pursuers. The colony night was never truly dark. The sky glowed faintly from the factories on the horizon, but that evening felt different, heavy, dangerous. James sat near the door of his workshop, listening to the distant sound of ships landing. Not ordinary traders, no, these were heavy craft, armored engines meant for hunters. The alien girl sensed it too. She sat on the cot, her free wrists resting on her knees, her glowing eyes filled with dread. "They are here," she whispered. "Valtrak's men, they have come for me." James didn't answer. He tightened his grip on the tool he held like a weapon, a plasma spanner, not designed for fighting but sharp enough to hurt. He had no armor, no soldiers, only his wits and the stubborn decision he had already made. By morning, the whispers became shouts. Merchants closed their stalls early, doors slammed shut, children were pulled inside. Everyone knew who had arrived. Valtrak's enforcers marched through the colony in black armor, their boots striking the metal ground like thunder. One of James's neighbors, a thin trader, came to his workshop in panic. "James, listen to me, give her up. If they find her here, they'll burn this place down. They'll kill us all." James stared at him, his voice calm but cold. "I'm not giving her back." The trader shook his head and fled. muttering, "You're already dead." Inside, the girl grabbed James's sleeve with trembling hands. "Please, do not fight them, you cannot win, they are too strong. They will tear you apart." James looked into her eyes, steady and unyielding. "I don't care how strong they are, they're not taking you." Her breath caught, her chest tight. She couldn't understand this man. Why would he risk his life for her, a girl he barely knew? By midday, the enforcers came to the workshop, their shadows falling long and sharp across the door. The leader banged on the metal frame, his voice deep and cruel. "Human mechanic, you have something that belongs to Lord Valtrak. Hand it over, now." The girl pressed herself against the wall, her heart pounding so loud she thought they would hear it. James stood by the door, his tool hidden behind his leg, his voice firm. "You've made a mistake, she doesn't belong to anyone." The enforcer laughed, a low growl through his helmet. "Everything belongs to someone, especially gifts marked by Valtrak. Open the door or we burn you alive." James felt the heat of fear inside him, but he didn't move, his voice didn't shake. No, the silence that followed was sharp as a blade. Then the enforcer snarled, "Very well," and the sound of weapons powering up echoed outside. The girl clutched the blanket around her shoulders, whispering, Why are you doing this for me?" But James didn't answer, he only braced himself. The colony watched from behind shuttered windows, whispers running like fire. "The human refuse is Valtrak's men," they said, "he will be crushed." But inside that workshop, fear turned into something else. The girl's eyes shimmered as she realized the truth. This man was not her master, not her jailer, he was her shield, and for the first time, she wondered if maybe, just maybe, there was a chance she wasn't meant to be property forever. The pursuers had come, but James was ready, he would fight, no matter the cost. The humans' defiance. The air outside the workshop grew tense, the sound of armored boots surrounded the small building. The enforcers moved like wolves circling prey, their heavy rifles glowing with red energy. Inside, James stood tall, sweat on his brow but steel in his eyes. The alien girl crouched behind a workbench, her breath shaky. She whispered, "They will kill you. They always kill the defiant ones. Please, let them take me. It is the only way you survive." James turned to her, his voice sharp, "I already told you, you're not going back." The door shuddered under a powerful strike, dust falling from the ceiling. The leader's voice bellowed, "Last warning, human, open this door and hand over the property, or face execution." James gripped his plasma spanner tighter. It wasn't much against soldiers with rifles, but it was all he had. He shouted back, "She is not property." The silence that followed was thick. Even the girl stared at him in disbelief, her lips parted, her glowing eyes wide. No one had ever spoken those words for her, no one had ever risked death to say she wasn't an object. The door burst open with a crash, metal bending inward. 5 enforcers stormed inside, their black armor reflecting the workshop's light, their rifles raised and pointed directly at James. "Move aside," the leader growled, his visor glowing red. "This is your last chance." James stood his ground, the tool humming faintly in his hand. "You want her, you'll have to go through me." The enforcers laughed cruelly. One of them sneered, "A mechanic thinks he can fight soldiers." He lifted his rifle, ready to fire. The girl gasped, pressing her hands over her mouth. She couldn't look away, her heart hammered against her ribs. She expected James to break, to drop his tool, to beg for mercy, but he did not. His feet stayed planted, his shoulders squared. In that moment, he okayed taller than the armored soldiers, not because of size, but because of will. The leader lowered his rifle slightly, studying him. "Why? She's nothing but a slave, a gift, a piece of property. Why die for her?" James's voice was calm, steady, every word like stone. "Because she's a person, and I won't let you take her." The girl's vision blurred with tears. She had heard many voices in her life, orders, commands, punishments, but never this. Never someone declaring she was worth more than chains. The leader's patience snapped. He raised his rifle again. "Then you die with her." James moved first, swinging his plasma spanner with surprising speed. Sparks flew as it clashed against the rifle, knocking it aside. He lunged toward the nearest enforcer, slamming the tool against the weak joint in the armor. The soldier stumbled back with a grunt. The others roared, charging at him, the workshop filled with the clash of metal and the hiss of energy weapons. James ducked behind his workbench, grabbing a welding torch and spraying it across the room. The sudden burst of fire forced two soldiers to retreat. The girl pressed herself against the wall, her hands trembling, but her eyes never left him. He was outnumbered, outmatched, but he kept fighting, refusing to yield. Outside, the colony gathered in silence, watching through cracks in their shutters. Whispers spread fast. The human is resisting Valtrak's men, some said in shock, others in awe. Inside, James panted, sweat dripping, bruises forming, but his eyes still burned with defiance. You picked the wrong workshop, he spat, standing once more between the girl and the soldiers, and for the first time in her life, the alien girl felt something more powerful than fear. She felt protected. The battle in the outpost, the clash inside the workshop spilled out into the dusty streets of Outpost K-17. Sparks burst from broken tools, and the hiss of plasma filled the air. James fought like a man with nothing left to lose. Every strike of his spanner was driven by raw will, not training. The alien girl stumbled out behind him, clutching the blanket tight, her glowing eyes wide with terror, but also something new. She saw him stand against armored soldiers, refusing to step aside, refusing to give her up. The first enforcer charged, rifle glowing. James ducked low and swung the spanner upward, slamming into the soldier's chest plate. The armor cracked. The soldier fell back with a grunt. James grabbed the weapon before it hit the ground and fired wildly, bolts of red energy slicing the air. The crowd gathered at the edges of the street, whispers spreading like fire. The mechanic is fighting Valtrak's men. Some gasped, he's insane, others said, but no one dared step in. The leader of the enforcers raised his hand, signaling the rest to surround James. End this quickly, he ordered, his voice dripping with fury. The girl cried out, no, please, don't hurt him. Her voice cracked with desperation, but the soldiers only laughed. He'll be nothing but ash soon. One sneered. James's lungs burned, his arms ached, but he kept moving, smashing tools into armor, throwing sparks in every direction. He knew he couldn't win by strength, so he used his mind, pulling levers, kicking over fuel drums, turning the battlefield into chaos. One barrel ignited, flames roaring into the night. The sudden explosion blinded the soldiers for a moment. James grabbed the girl's hand, pulling her toward the alley. Move, he shouted. They ran together, the colony's narrow streets twisting like a maze. The girl's breath came fast, her heart pounding. She had never been free like this, never been pulled along by someone who wanted to save her instead of chain her. Behind them, the enforcers gave chase, heavy boots striking the ground, rifles firing bursts of red light. James ducked behind a wall, pressing her against the shadows. Stay quiet, he whispered. She clung to him, trembling, whispering back, why risk everything? Why not let them take me? His eyes met hers, fierce even in the darkness. Because you deserve more than chains. Her throat tightened, her chest heavy with emotions she couldn't name. The enforcers spread through the streets, shouting orders, their red visors glowing in the smoke. James threw a broken pipe across the road. The clang distracted them for a moment, giving him just enough time to drag her into an abandoned storage shed. Inside, the air smelled of dust and rust. James leaned against the wall, panting, blood dripping from a cut on his arm. The girl pressed her hands against the wound, whispering in her alien tongue, a soft prayer of healing, though she had no power, only hope. Outside, the colony watched in silence, afraid to help, but whispers spread from mouth to mouth. The human fights for the gift, he defies Valtrak himself. The story was growing bigger with every passing second. The enforcers regrouped in the square, their leader's voice cold, burn the entire sector if we must, but find them. The girl looked at James, fear shaking her body. They will destroy everything, all because of me. James placed a hand on her shoulder, steady and unyielding. No, not because of you, because of them, and I won't let them win. For the first time in her life, she felt the fire of defiance too. His courage was spreading to her heart. The battle for the outpost had just begun, and neither of them would face it alone. The bond sealed. The storage shed was dark, lit only by a crack of moonlight slipping through a broken panel. James leaned against the wall, his breathing rough, blood stained his sleeve, but his eyes stayed sharp. The alien girl knelt beside him, pressing the cloth of her blanket to his wound. You should not bleed for me, she whispered, her voice trembling. I am nothing. I am only a mistake sent to the wrong man. James shook his head. forcing a tired smile. You're not nothing, and you're not a mistake. Her glowing eyes widened, confusion filling them. She had been told her whole life that she was property, that her only worth was to please her master. Now this human spoke as if she was more, as if she mattered. Outside, the heavy sound of armored boots grew louder. The enforcers were still searching, shouting orders through the outpost streets. Every sound made the girl flinch, but James remained calm, his hand resting over hers, steady, grounding her. Listen to me, he said softly. I don't care what Valtrak calls you. I don't care what chains they put on you. You're free now, do you understand? She shook her head, tears filling her eyes. No one is free from Valtrak. He owns planets, armies, slaves. He will never let me go. He will crush you, crush us both. James squeezed her hand, his voice low but unbreakable. Then let him try. I'd rather die fighting than see you in chains again. Her heart trembled at his words. She had never seen such defiance, never heard such strength. Something deep inside her chest stirred, something dangerous and beautiful. Slowly, she lowered her forehead against his shoulder, whispering, why me, human, why risk everything for me? James looked at her glowing hair, silver in the moonlight, his voice quiet, because you deserve to live your own life, not one chosen for you. The girl closed her eyes, letting the warm touch of his words sink into her soul. For the first time, she felt like she belonged, not to a master, not to chains, but to herself, and maybe, to him. Moments passed in silence, broken only by the distant sound of flames as the enforcers set fire to abandoned stalls. The colony was being punished for hiding them. The people whispered from behind doors. The human still resists. Their voices carried awe, fear, and something new, hope. Inside the shed, the bond between James and the girl grew stronger, unspoken yet undeniable. She reached up, gently touching the broken cuff still hanging from her wrists, her voice quiet. These chains are gone, but I still feel them, in here. She tapped her chest. They will never let me forget what I was. James looked at her firmly. Then I'll remind you every day what you are now. She lifted her head, her glowing eyes meeting his. And what am I now? James leaned closer, his voice soft but steady. Not property, not a gift, not a mistake. You are your own, but if you'll let me, you'll never have to face any of this alone. Her lips trembled, her heart raced. Those words broke something inside her, not chains of iron, but chains of despair. She whispered back, almost too soft to hear, then I choose to stay. At that moment, the bond was sealed, not by force, not by fear, but by choice. Outside, the enforcers regrouped, preparing to search the final sectors. The storm of Valtrak's wrath was far from over, but inside the small shed, for the first time, the alien girl felt stronger than the galaxy's chains, because she was no longer alone. The reckoning. The sky above Outpost K-17 burned red as dawn broke. Ships thundered down from orbit, larger than anything the colony had seen before. Lord Valtrak had arrived. His vessel blotted out the weak sun, casting the settlement in shadow. The people of the colony hid in silence, doors locked, eyes peering through cracks. No one dared move. They all knew the wrath of Valtrak. When he came, whole towns vanished. Inside the shed, the alien girl pressed against James's side, her hands shaking. He is here, she whispered, her voice breaking. Valtrak himself. No one defies him, not armies, not governments. You cannot fight him. James looked at her with calm eyes, though his chest ached with fear. I don't need to fight an army. I just need to stand my ground. Moments later, the streets filled with armored soldiers. Their boots thundered in unison. Then he came, Lord Valtrak, a towering figure clad in black robes and metal plates, his eyes glowing a sickly green, his voice echoing like thunder. Bring me the thief who dares keep what is mine. The soldiers dragged fire barrels to the square, setting them ablaze as warnings. The colony's people knelt in fear, whispering prayers. But James stepped out of the shadows, the girl just behind him, wrapped in her torn blanket. The crowd gasped. He's insane, someone muttered, but their eyes stayed fixed on the human. Valtrak's gaze locked on James, his voice dripping with contempt. So this is the worm who thinks himself above me. Hand over the gift, human, and I will grant you a quick death. James tightened his fists, his voice steady. She's not a gift, not property, not yours. She belongs to herself. A ripple of shock ran through the crowd. the girl's glowing eyes widened, tears filling them as she heard those words again, louder than ever, spoken not just to her but to the whole world. Valtrak's face stead with rage, his deep voice roared, "Everything belongs to me, every slave, every life, and she was sent with my mark, she is mine." James stepped closer, his boots scraping the dirt, his voice rising, "Not anymore, she is free, and I'll die before I let you take her back." The enforcers lifted their rifles, the air hummed with the sound of charged weapons. The girl gasped, grabbing James's arm, "No, please, don't, they will kill you." But James only looked at her, his voice softer now, "Meant only for her, even if they kill me, they will never chain you again." Her heart shattered under the weight of his words. No one had ever chosen her over their own life. Valtrak raised his hand, ready to give the order, but the colony stirred, whispers spreading fast. "The human defies Valtrak. He calls her free." Voices grew louder, braver, some even stood, their fear cracking under the spark of rebellion. For the first time in years, Valtrak saw resistance in the eyes of his subjects. His voice thundered with fury, "You dare challenge me? A single man against an empire?" James lifted the broken shackles he had kept, holding them high for all to see. "One man is enough. If he refuses to kneel." The crowd gasped, silence followed, the girl's breath caught, her tears fell freely. She whispered, "You are not just a man, you are hope." The reckoning had come, the galaxy's chains were being tested, and in the center of it all stood a single human, unarmed but unbroken, and for the first time, Lord Valtrak's certainty wavered. His own, forever. The square of Outpost K-17 stood frozen in silence. Lord Valtrak's soldiers aimed their weapons, the people held their breath. James stood tall in the center, his body bruised, his hands shaking, but his eyes unyielding. Beside him the alien girl clutched his arm, her glowing eyes shimmering with fear and something stronger, faith. Valtrak's voice thundered across the square, "Last chance, human. Give her to me and you may crawl away alive." James raised his chin, his voice carrying over the flames and fear. "She is not yours, she never was, she is free, and if you want her, you'll have to kill me first." Gasps rippled through the crowd, whispers rose like wind through dry grass. "The human defies him, he calls her free." The word spread from mouth to mouth, the girl's heart raced, every second stretched into eternity. She had lived her whole life waiting for a master's command. But now she heard a human declaring she belonged only to herself. The chains inside her began to break, one by one. Valtrak's eyes burned with green fire, rage twisting his face. "Then die," he spat, raising his hand, but before he could give the order, something unexpected happened. The people of the colony moved, first a few, then dozens, standing from their hiding places, blocking the soldier's path, voices rising together. "She is not property. He is not alone." For the first time in years, the colony defied their lord. Valtrak snarled, "Fools, I own you all." His soldiers aimed their rifles, but their hands shook. The crowd's courage spread like wildfire, and hesitation cracked their discipline. James stepped forward, pulling the girl with him. He raised the broken shackles high above his head, his voice echoing, "These chains are done. No more slaves, no more gifts, not here, not today." The girl's tears spilled, she dropped the blanket and stood beside her voice trembling but clear. I choose to stay with him, not as property, but as my own." The square erupted, the crowd shouted in unison, their voices a storm. Valtrak's face twisted with fury. He could not crush them all without sparking rebellion across other colonies. His empire ruled by fear, and fear had just been broken. With a final snarl, Valtrak turned away, his robe sweeping behind him. "This is not the end, human, you have made an enemy of an empire." His ship lifted into the sky, fire trails burning across the clouds. Silence fell again, then cheers rose, hesitant at first, then louder, the colony shouting the human's name, their fear replaced with hope. James turned to the girl, her silver hair catching the morning light, her glowing eyes filled with wonder. He touched her hand gently. "You're free now, truly free. But the choice is yours. Where do you want to go?" Her lips trembled, but her answer was firm. "I want to stay, not as a gift, not as a slave, but with you." James smiled, a rare, tired smile. then with me you'll stay. The bond sealed in whispers and fire was now unbreakable. The girl no longer a lost package, no longer property, but her own person who had chosen her path. And as the colony watched them walk together through the square, whispers turned into legend. They would tell the story for years, how a simple mechanic defied a lord, how one human freed a gift, and how she became his own, forever.